So I am nobody, and I should never celebrate until he's 5 years old. Yes, so we do not know which form this time. So welcome you to make your presentation on Constitutional Amendment number 2.
Thank you.
2020.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, actually, this bill addresses part of what you have just said.
Yeah.
So I'm just begging for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the bill, Constitutional Amendment Bill number 2, the object of the bill.
That's why we need this bill now. If it can be passed, we will have the election petition process.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the object of the bill is to amend the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda in accordance with Article 259 and 262 of the Constitution, to provide mechanism for addressing the regional imbalances in the recruitment, appointment, and promotion of persons in public offices, B, and to establish election petition tribunals to determine the election petitions arising out of parliamentary elections, 2, whether a seat of a member of parliament has become vacant, 3, whether persons have been validly elected speaker or deputy speaker, or having been so elected as vacated office. Mr. Chairman, this bill has 3 provisions. One which...
I wonder whether I should share.
So one which...
I wonder whether I should share the given my other interests, since it's threatening to...
The first provision, Mr. Chairman,
just an interest,
seeks to amend Article 32 by inserting Article 32A, that's to provide for the regional balance. The next clause seeks to amend to replace Article 86, and the third is a consequential amendment which seeks to repeal Article 140 of the Constitution. Mr. Chairman,
fulfill Article
140 of the Constitution, which provides for the jurisdiction of courts in handling election petitions, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, when I want to proceed by to justify, these are the justification for these amendments. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll go to the first provision, which is on Article 32A. Mr. Chairman, you'll agree with me and members that we have sat in committees of parliament and people come and introduce themselves as a civil servant or public servant from one entity, when they are all from one area. And without shame, they even proceed to present as if nothing has happened. Mr. Chairman, when you go to, actually, we go to the education system, most of the people are applying to go to the universities. They normally are admitted through the quota system. To me, the implication is that we are people qualified in all fields, wherever they are, across the entire country, to do some of these jobs. It has become very difficult for our children, brothers and sisters who have finished university to apply for a job without knowing anybody on the committee or in a public service, or without having money to buy a job. This has manifested itself in very many ways. And the live example, I've told you, I've ever been a vice chair of a committee. So I was made to chair a session. So I had called for the introduction of the member. And they were all from one side. So I raised an objection. That was Public Accounts Committee by then. So it was, I think, then it was Uganda National Research Institute. So I said, you people, you don't get ashamed. They said, no, we are the one who got the job and we are qualified.
They were all from which region?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, since for now, Mr. Chairman, the record is that. Okay, Mr. Chairman, they're all from the West. They're all from the West. And yeah, I saw a problem. Instead of quarreling about them being from the West, I thought it is timely that we come up with a law which will provide regional balance when it comes to actually to employment. Mr. Chairman, this is not new in the world. In Kenya, they came up with such a measure to create regional balance through employment. So if actually the clerk, our clerk, they came up with such a system. And Mr. Chairman, this has also been, when it comes to the recruitment of the prison, the police and the army, there has been a regional recruitment, despite the fact that there have also been people who have been trying to fluke or to adopt names from certain areas, but that has not damaged the situation the way actually it is. Mr. Chairman, without labeling much, because all these injustices are within your society, they have occurred wherever you stay and where you represent, I want to invite this committee.
To discard merit?
No. I'm not saying, Mr. Chairman, to discard merit. Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying that they get people who have no merit or who are not qualified. All I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, maybe let me give an example for the purpose of the Vice Chair and the committee. If people were employed from one region and there were permanent secretaries in the government, they would sway resources to their area in terms of development. They would educate their children even further than any other. And when a job is advertised, they would be best suited actually to work in those offices. Yet, if an opportunity was given to everybody, Mr. Chairman, there would be balanced recruitment in the government. Mr. Chairman, I'm not even saying that even those who have taken a lion's share should not benefit when there is advertisement of the job. I'm only saying that the merrymaking, yes, has been there, but from the time the President will assent to this bill, let us be patriotic. Let us recruit people based on competence, based on their qualification. But what I know is that there are people in Kisoro, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, who are qualified to do the jobs which are already advertised in public sector, but there should be regional balance when it comes to recruitment. Mr. Chairman, I should be clearly understood. I'm not saying that my area should even get more than any other region. I'm only saying it's only fair that the imbalance which has existed for all that long should be addressed now. The danger would rely in not even stopping the imbalance for fear of being misunderstood. But my mandate extends, Mr. Chairman, to really taking up on this matter, irrespective of whether I'm understood or I'm not misunderstood, or understood or misunderstood. Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, I want to move to the next provision, which is Article 86 of the Constitution. Mr. Chairman, when you look at the position as is today, anybody who loses an election petition would be required to petition the High Court to determine an election petition with a chance of appeal to Court of Appeal as the last appellate court. Mr. Chairman, whereas the Constitution provides for expeditious disposal of election petition and talks about 6 months, the same, Mr. Chairman, has been abused. And without pointing fingers, because we're not in the blame game, I don't want to even take that direction. But I can just use my own example. The other time I'd been cheated, just like this time, I went to the High Court. It gave judgment in 2 months. Then the Court of Appeal took 18 months to dispose of an obvious appeal of one issue who won. And without necessarily seeming to be blaming the mode of the justice system in the country, I thought that when you look at the Presidential Election Act, and the Constitution, it provides for the presidential election petition, and it provides for a time frame within which
45 days.
Yes, 45 days. And the Supreme Court has even delivered the summary judgment in these matters. What the amendment is seeking in election matters to say that we dispose of this petition in 45 days. We have been giving the latitude for the panel. We are talking about a panel. We're not talking about an individual. Because what is also, Mr. Chairman, apparent, that when we have a panel which is going to look into this matter and give a summary judgment, when the matters are even fresh in the minds of the witness, it will help to expeditiously dispose of this petition, since there will be no room of appeal. The decision of that election tribunal will be final. Mr. Chairman, we propose this tribunal to be a real panel because I'm proposing of having 7 members. So the tribunal is headed either by a justice of court of appeal or justice of the Supreme Court and other judicial officers who may be appointed from rank but not below High Court. Meaning that if 7 judicial officers sit and determine this matter expeditiously, even the masses whom we involve into this electoral process which does not end, they will go back to their gardens and engage in productive work other than holding everybody at that time. Mr. Chairman, I've addressed the question of time. I want to address the question of the nugatory expenditure. Mr. Chairman, the other time when we were in court, people who did not deserve, who had cheated the elections, came in Parliament. They were given vehicles. Shortly after, they lost the election petitions. They didn't return the vehicles. They went with that. And then us who came in, government also bought for us vehicles. In my view, that's a nugatory expenditure. If this money was, if the election petition was disposed of timely in 45 days, that money would be saved and taken either at the LSS Center for in Nagongera or in Namutumba. So I consider that nugatory expenditure that it can be avoided. Mr. Chairman, there is a question of violence in this election. It has also come about because most of the perpetrators of violence say, let me do everything. I will be sworn in, and then I will get money for a car. Then I'll also be there for 2 years. Even if I'm removed, I will have got something. Mr. Chairman, if there is expeditious disposal of these election petitions, and you very well know, you know that even if you engage in violence and you are declared, you will end with your declaration because the court, the tribunal, will dispose of the election petition timely, and at the end of the day, not benefit out of the violence you are perpetuated. But this business of people running around wanting to be gazetted, so they say, now I'm there. I'm waiting for money faker. I want some money. Then by the time they remove me, I will have got something. It defeats the purpose of this election petition. Mr. Chairman, the petition, the bill makes a provision on gazetting. We are saying that since the petition will be handled within 45 days, there will be no need of gazetting someone before the tribunal dispose of this petition. Because that, in my view, that has been the biggest cause of violence. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, there has been the question of the integrity, Mr. Chairman, of these people who are adjudicating these matters. I know I've had the benefit, Mr. Chairman, when I moved this bill, to share with many victims in this parliament about what transpired. Maybe that even may explain why some of the colleagues, even when they were given money to buy cars, we are seeing them driving Primo, Corona, because the money of the car had been taken in the process. Yes, town else. When many came and confided in me that most of the money had been taken and spent in these election petitions. So at the end of the day,
yeah, just to pay the lawyers.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm vindicated. I'm fortified by the statement of Honorable Peter Sematimba, when after completing this in 6 when I had been in Parliament, he said I'd spent over 350 million shillings in sorting this election petition. The coding with that, we saw him. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to go in that direction. So I'm not going there. Mr. Chairman, the point I'm making that we want to avoid the situation where a member who has found himself illegally here is pledging his money for the car, to sort out an election petition. Because if the petition is going to be disposed of before you take oath, you will be the ground will be leveled for everybody who will be participating in such. Mr. Chairman,
what's your proposal on you say gazetting, no gazetting?
Mr. Chairman, I'm saying that to me.
How would they know? How would you petition a person you've not been gazetted? What are you proposing to cure that?
Mr. Chairman,
the process now is that for any election petition to issue, they must be gazetted. And gazetting, the purpose of gazette is to set
know who
notice that this is the elected person, or purportedly elected person.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I was actually when you asked, I reflected on it. But actually, this is one of an amendment I would even drop, because if we are going to dispose of in 45 days, even if they gazette, then someone not to be sworn in. So, Mr. Chairman, I've benefited from your wise counsel on this, and I will.
We share the greed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finally, Mr. Chairman, it is about the repeal. The last article is a consequential amendment, in effect that the jurisdiction is vested in the High Court and Court of Appeal, and is provided for under Article 140. So when we carry these amendments, automatically we shall have a consequential amendment on Article 140 by repealing Article 140. The last statement, Mr. Chairman, is from how elections are running in this country. You have seen where we are moving, that it is only through this bill that we can make certain people even think about participating in these elections. Many of you must have been victims. I don't think you liked what was taking place in the field. And I think as leaders, we have a duty to shape the future of this country as far as governance issues are concerned. And Mr. Chairman, that's what motivates me to bring this bill. I want to thank Mr. Chairman and the committee members for having given an opportunity to present on this bill. And I want to thank you in advance for the support I see. Because I saw everybody was almost nodding up.
You even seen the support in advance.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, members, I see the first hand.
Thank you,
Not
Chair.
Madam Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the mover or the mover of this constitutional amendment. But I want to concentrate on the first amendment, that is the correcting Article 34, correcting the imbalances, and try to lay as much as possible in our laws the affirmative action and improve the now Article 32A. I want to say that the law is there. I think our problem is the practice. And it is the practice, and also it stems from a historical point of view, and also what was left with us by the colonialists. Now it is easy to point fingers at the West. But when I was growing up and maturing and what have you, it was different. There was an imbalance, or there seemed to have been an imbalance or a domination of a certain area or profession by a certain community. But nobody complained about it. I'll give you an example. At one time in Makerere University, we had more professors coming from TESU. They were the lead.
But they were the first teachers in the history of Uganda.
Yes. And
or
maybe I can even enlarge it. The professors, the elites were coming from the East. And nobody complained, and they filled those positions, and it was merit. So whereas I agree with him, I think we are also taking advantage. That's why I said the law is there, but the practice is the one which is wrong. Then at another time, not too long from the professors of Makerere, we again had a group of people, again it was from the eastern region, that were the judiciary. Thank you for stealing the exam. The number one, the permanent secretaries is what I wanted to say. again coming from the same region. Purely
on the constituency had 8.
Yes.
Then now none.
Even my small Kaberamaido, which has nothing now, we had 3 PSs from a small whatever. Nobody complained. It was merit. They had the papers and they qualified. Then on a lower whatever, not so much of a blue collar job, we had people from the north. If you looked for police, prisons, the army, they also came from that region. Nobody complained. They dominated. Now, I am getting old, hopefully not yet, and this question of imbalances is coming. So, to the mover, I support you, but at the same time, let us look back at what is actually the root cause of why we are complaining. Because it is also what is causing intolerance in our society. It is probably what is causing all these violences. Everything is going to the west, everything is going where? And I worry.
So when last Christmas, when people were going back, I never saw the screen, the short photos of vehicles going to Jinja East, but I saw for the ones going to the west. Is it a calculated move that we want to constitutionalize now? There's a UC, the kind of vehicles going, the V8 and what?
Chair,
So is that what you...
Chair, I don't want to adopt your way of reasoning, but mine is my personal worry, because we have intermarried. And if now one region is pointed, then I feel the spear is being pointed at me.
That's right.
So how do we address this? There is something wrong. The law is there, but to now make a law on top of another one, I totally agree with your thinking and why you brought it, but let's not... Thank you very much.
No, she's a diplomat.
Mr. Chairman,
I
I got the
hope
concern.
you got the concern.
And
You
the
got
spirit
my...
she has delivered here.
Thank you.
If you understand how well,
I
you
did.
know us. Yes, honorable neighbor.
Thank you for...
University Bola, yes.
Chairman, I want to thank
The
you.
goat, is she goat?
She got,
You are the she goat.
under the leadership of the chairman,
Yes.
at that time I was a
Was
she
a
goat.
humble- She was the only female resident of University Bola, allowed by the university.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
confirm.
only simple visits, chairman, not,
No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Mr. Chairman, I want to use this opportunity to thank Honorable Mwiru. I'm one of the members who was nodding aggressively when he was making this presentation. And I was just reflecting on this matter, how far we've come in terms of discussing, particularly the first item that he has brought. But I want to say that the 2 amendments he proposes are very, very important. I think they're on the equal status in terms of their importance. But I want to address myself most importantly to the first. And I think that, Chairman, coming from what Honorable Bichetera has been putting before the table, this matter is very sensitive and I can say very difficult to talk about. And I recall the member was talking about the risk actually of being even misunderstood. I remember in the 9th Parliament, this matter came up, but we were discussing it generally in the House on the floor. And I can never forget the emotions that were running across sides, particularly when you make mention of those inequalities that are in the country and pointing fingers here and there. So I can only understand and expect a lot of opposition, but I want to stand with him and say that this is a matter that is very, very important. And given the times that we are in, there is enough evidence. There is enough evidence before us as a committee before the House, before the country generally, that can be relied on to address this matter. And I want to thank him for taking courage for bringing it at this stage. And I think it's the safest way to deal with it in terms of amendment in the Constitution, rather than just discussing it generally without taking action. Mr. Chairman, just to allay the fears of Honorable Bichetero, I think that beyond what we see on the face, of course there are those historical imbalances, but also to cure such imbalances, we will need a deliberate and an aggressive approach as well. Because if a Ugandan is affected in such a way, which other way to deal with it? I believe that the Constitution already has a provision that talks about such imbalances. When they appear, we should be able to be quick to notice and to look out on ways to address it. And this imbalance, I think, has been longer than we've been watching it quietly and silently and not doing anything about it. Truth of the matter, Mr. Chairman, is that there is this imbalance, and we've been a bit hesitant to address it. Job recruitment in this country, promotions, seem to be suggesting that one side of the country is more entitled. I am not a diplomat. For me, I throw my words the way they are.
And which side is that?
That is the Western region, Mr. Chair. And this matter has to be confronted the way it is. There is no other way about it. And we need to deal with it the way it has come. Now, and this is the opportunity offered.
Forever.
Mr. Chairman, as you can see, the difficulty of even talking about it, you have to look for the words to bring out your point.
You are looking for
without affecting or injuring somebody's emotions. But Chairman, having said that, I think that I want to put my support on record with the difficulty that I'm having, that I think God has used Honorable Mwiru, who is courageous enough to bring this matter before the floor, before we expire this parliament, and see how we can address it. For the case of TESO, I think that the historical imbalances that Honorable Bichetero talks about are beyond perhaps that, but also the inequalities that are pertaining in society right now, that one community may not be able to educate their children. It's not about competence anymore or qualification. It's about the limited opportunities that we have and the scramble for that. So if we find that there is a PS, and then also there is the head of department is from one region, the program officers and others are from, how in the world do you expect another person who is not from that region to qualify and get that job on merit? So I think I've made my point.
Thank you.
With the difficulty.
I wish I could be helped, this community would be helped with the specific
statistics.
empirical
Yes.
evidence that, because so that we don't, you are amending a constitution. You're proposing to amend the constitution. We should not talk like bystanders. The standard of amending the constitution is a very
High.
Yeah, this is a national document, that's not a piece of an act of parliament. So the mover, will you undertake to bring
Mr. Chairman,
statistics and evidence to put forward your case?
Mr. Chairman, it's only on the record of Parliament, and I'd like to retrieve it to the committee. Honorable Semuju as chair also presented the same, and he also informed the bill. But Mr. Chairman, I will take heed of your guidance.
So
I'll provide to the.
You take.
I'll take heed of your.
Okay, and you.
And I'll retrieve it from
Yes.
the record of Parliament and give it to you.
Chairman, I want to request the Honorable Paul Mwiru to clarify on the relationship between the proposal of addressing regional imbalances to the constitutional provision establishing the Equal Opportunities Commission and its functions. and also relate that to the principal directives and objectives of state policy on the need to ensure equity in public life or service, and then marry with the observation by the Honorable Veronica on the existence of a legal framework. Maybe we could address it differently, whether we seek to enact another law or find ways of implementing the existing provisions, especially the Equal Opportunities Commission. Number two, Mr. Chairman, is on the issue of the Election Petition Tribunal. According to the Honorable Mwiru, this tribunal should be able to dispose of petitions expeditiously, judiciously, and in effect, it is doing away with the appeal process. Don't you think that having an appeal process can create some, certainty and trust, and also hope in the judicial system? Should my fate lie in the hands of the 7, that you are proposing to be in the tribunal? And would it be possible, for example, to amend the provisions of the law, other provisions of the law, the electoral laws? Yes, because the issues he raises about the time limits, the certainty, the time limits, wouldn't it require that we strengthen the existing electoral laws other than perhaps going into the amendment? Maybe just needed some clarification on those aspects.
Yes, Honorable Jovia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I want to thank
Jova. I'm sorry. Honorable Jova. Jovia. That's Honorable Dr. Jovia Kamate, and the woman named Jova. Jova. Yeah. Okay. Jovia is also my friend, but this one is my best friend.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Actually, I want to thank Honorable Mwiru for the submission, for coming up with the bill. And I want to thank my colleagues, most especially Honorable Veronica and Honorable Basariwa, my neighbor. Actually, for me, when I read this, the first sections, I crossed it out, I dismissed it. Because of the fact that the laws are there, and really what is lacking is a practice, as Honorable Veronica has said. And in coming up with this bill, it is as if we are carrying out, it is an administrative action almost. It is, we do not deny that the imbalances are there, the inequalities, but how do we deal with it? Is it by coming up with another law when we have the Constitution, we have the Equal Opportunities Commission, as my colleagues have pointed out? Should we maybe direct that the civil service standing operation procedures may be looked into, rather than coming up with another law? And for me, really, in order to address the existing imbalances, we need to revamp the economy and to ensure that all our kids that have gone through school are able to to get jobs, and that as many of us as possible are able to engage in the creation of wealth, so that we are able to educate our children. I am one person that went through the civil service by merit. I did not have a godfather, although I come from the West. But as I have said, I do recognize that the imbalances are there. But also there are people who have gone through the service without having to be chaperoned through. Then I wanted to ask the Honorable Mwiru if there are other countries that have this kind of law directing the government in place to ensure that jobs are given on an equitable basis. Of course, that's even our Equal Opportunities Commission, that's what it aims at. That for jobs, for study opportunities, for that they are all given on an equitable basis. So, thank you. I thought that we need better ways of addressing this rather than alone. Thank you. Then, Honorable Chair, on the second. No, Honorable Chair, allow me please to finish. On the proposals. Sorry. On the proposals for the electoral petitions, we are saying 45 days. Where are we going to get the judges to ensure that these petitions are heard in 45 days? Honorable Chair, I'm wondering where we are going to get the sufficient number of judges to ensure that all these electoral petitions.
I'm glad the very reason you wanted to finish with that aspect is very good, because there's a big cry. Parliament recommended for 82. We still have less than half, maybe 43 judges. So you give them 45 days, each judge will handle how many cases, and all parliamentary elections and the LOC 5 will go to.
Yeah, so I think we need to be more reasonable in that regard. But I want to support his proposal that people should not be allowed to
be sworn in.
Yeah, to be sworn in where there is an election petition. So we can give it maybe about 6 months, but not let people swear in as long as there are these petitions. Let us give it reasonable time to ensure that the judges.
You and me in this committee established the period when we made the constitutional amendment.
Okay.
The president has to be elected and sworn in about 12th of May. Any day going beyond that is a constitutional crisis. Members of Parliament can't go beyond 2 weeks after the swearing. There must be a government formed, because the other one will have expired by 18.
Thank you, but then let maybe these facilities that are supposed to they are supposed to receive be withheld until the petitions are heard. Then I want to agree with Honorable Basariwa that the appeal process is necessary. Thank you.
Yes, appeal process, just in case of an error of judgment.
Yeah.
Yes, you just come. You want to speak? You go.
Yeah, Chairman, through you, I'd like to thank Honorable Mwiru for a brilliant presentation that's made before us. I also like to thank him for highlighting some of the complex in the country now. But that is where I think thanking stops, because
He's very honest with himself.
Yeah. When I was studying constitutional law and public law, my professor used to say that a constitution is a grand norm. You don't run to the constitution every time you have a crisis, or not a crisis. Every time there is a small thing coming up, you don't go to amend the constitution. Article 259 gives you power to make laws under the earth, under the sun. You have the right to make laws that will guide the country. Now, under national objectives and directive principles of state policy, democratic principles, and Roman 4 says that the composition of government shall be broadly representative of the national character and social diversity of the country. To be honest, yes, that's what it should be. We may have fallen short of that, but is the answer to amend the constitution, or the answer is to make primary laws that can address that problem? I'm looking at a situation, I may be the devil's advocate, where you have certain professions, certain job categories, where you can have quota system, like the army, the police, the prisons. But let's say you have nine vacancies of microbiologists who you want PhDs, holders of PhDs. Now, if you've given your approach, suppose all the 9 microbiologists come from Serere, would they not be employed simply because you still have to have quota system of recruitment? I thought that in some aspects, in some jobs, in some disciplines, you need merit. People must be recruited on merit, not necessarily quota systems. So, if you want to have that thing implemented, you could propose a bill under 259 and 262, and we shall move with it, and not necessarily to touch the Constitution. We've been touching it too often.
We have to touch it on this. On B, which is
Election tribunal.
Yes, election tribunal. I'm afraid I don't also support that one. I am of the view that we build capacity of our court system, and as you correctly said, we give a limit of days in which these tribunals, election petitions, can be finalized. I do not think that only one level of adjudication should be enough in election petitions. We should give it an appellate, so in case of error or something, there should be another view on top. So, I think the solution lies in improving and developing our capacity in the judiciary so that we're able to handle election petitions expeditiously. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Paul Mwiru, you have all that to respond to. Some were largely observations, so people were writing the report. In your presence.
Thank me and straight along.
And he said it back. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Hey, you wanted. You are out.
We have 30.
I support the first proposal to amend Article 32. Because Chair, I carefully listened to my mom, the Honorable Bichekero, that there was a time when what is happening now was the case with the Usoga, Eastern, and mentioned and Northern. Now, Chair, the only solution to that situation, and I guess when that was happening, the people from Western were not happy.
That's right.
When it was with Northern, the people from Central and Eastern were not happy. And the only solution is to have a constitutional provision that will act as a yardstick in determining how these jobs are distributed. My senior brother's fears that what if there will be a situation where there are 9 posts advertised and only those that have such qualifications are from a specific part of the country, what will happen? Then they will always have exceptions, but let there be a piece of legislation, a general rule that guides. Just like we had issues with the women. There was such a time in Uganda where it was so hard for women to occupy certain offices. But when the law was enacted and it was clearly expressed by the Constitution, it's no longer a problem. So we need a constitutional provision to rectify what is happening today. We need a quota system in regard to recruitment of civil servants. I support that amendment. Maybe as a committee, we just need to think of which exception is to put in the amendment.
Thank you.
And regarding the tribunal, I did not understand Honorable Mwiru's proposal.
What you said you are supporting?
Well, I was supporting him on the first proposal.
I wanted to say thank you.
The issue of the procedure for handling questions regarding the validity of election of speaker and deputy speaker, I needed more light on that and why it should be a constitutional issue. Yes, thank you.
Yes, the aspect of me by nature, I'm very open, even when it's going to hurt you. I say it. The Padoras are known for that, so we have very few friends. That is very true.
But you're at the border.
The Padoras and Batika, they don't have many friends because they talk their minds. Without going deep or with fear and contradiction, what causes the imbalance? Can we look at why the East had more PSAs and ministers, the North had more people in the army? Why can't we have an honest talk? Because what we are trying to legislate and cut the Constitution, probably naturally it will end, and then the law will be redundant. Are we making this law targeting the Museveni group? A constitution must not be made in that way. A constitution, in my view, must be made for all Ugandans. The Museveni era will come to an end one time. Just like, but we've all been saying very soon for about many years. So that gives us hope.
That one is too soon.
Yeah, if it is very soon, then we don't need the amendment.
No, it's not about himself.
No, the thing is about the interplay, where I agree with the Paul and this regional imbalance. The interplay between the regional imbalance and political empowerment. You would be a deaf, dull person to know that political empowerment has correlation with economic and social transformation. This is what we are talking about. With the, yes.
The certificate of gender equity is working very well to make sure that whatever resources we have are equitably distributed in terms of gender equity. Is it possible? Members are laughing. Is it possible that because it is impossible? It's not impossible. It's doing something. So is it possible? Even if you put in this law, you may say it is impossible because there will still be some. So is it possible that we can go along the lines of certificate of gender equity, so that the Equal Opportunities Commission can require government departments to show the employment equity, regional
Yes, and you see that raises the issue of federalism. If you look at, in America, you can't find this kind of argument. Nigeria, they have their own things, and they have federal. Kenya, they copied from US. Their constitution is still in shambles. They brought what is same federal. They brought it county and devolution. For us, we're on decentralization. We need to read deeper and address this thing. We have regional governments in our constitution, but they have failed to take off. If we want to talk about federalism, federal system, let's talk about it in Uganda. But you say in a constitution, you make sure how many PSAs, how many will come from. You must start from arranging the opportunities to go to school. A Javadola parent from Mwafu cannot educate a child to go and compete favorably for some of these jobs.
Chair, just on that, if you may.
Sugarcane grower in Namutumba cannot educate
we have quota system when it comes to education.
Yes.
And it gives an opportunity to a student of Namutumba who has scored 8 points to be admitted on government at Makerere. But the one from Central or Western, they will pick one who has scored 20. Now, those two students, after they have passed out, they cannot favorably compete for the same grade.
Why? That's the reason we should inquire.
So it is the very reason we should put in place a system which can also.
What about Honorable who will educate his child in Kano? How will they compete?
You see, Honorable Paul Mwiru, if we want to address the issue and undress the issue of imbalances, political imbalances, it is time for Ugandans, and I will make this in writing, I'm not shy about it. The moment you have people from big tribes taking political leadership, transferring this to this, we need to now look at a research. Get a Batwa, somebody to be a president from there. Get a Mugwere. Even if he puts everybody to be a Radis, they will still need big tribes. Put a Kumam. Now, for you, corruption, the first corruption, Anyway, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, thank you so much.
So if you were proposing amendment that small tribes with less than 500 people should be the ones to take leadership by constitution in a rotational manner, I would do, but go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, you see you to do another. Mr. Chairman, first I want to thank you and the colleagues for the input. On the onset, Mr. Chairman, I want to say that I'm not a tribalist myself, and I've never believed in it, and I think it's empirical that I don't believe in tribalism myself. I think there is a lot of empirical evidence to prove that. To Mr. Chairman, then to Mr. Chairman, you had an insinuation that you had read the name Museveni in the bill, but I hadn't. I flipped again that this has nothing to do with the current political establishment.
Did I say I read
Mr. Chairman, I want to proceed by saying, going to the question raised by Honorable Ver, my good friend. I think you'd be wondering, why me? When we had a discussion about this bill with colleagues, many feared to be misunderstood. So I said, okay, everybody knows I'm not a tribalist. I think I can put up this matter. I have no problem. Mr. Chairman, when you look at the bill, you realize that we are not even complaining of the past. We are not saying that we're going to correct what has been meted on us as a people. No, we are not saying that. You understand? We are even saying that from the time of our ascent, this is when this should take effect. And even those who have the beneficiaries can now get the same share. Mr. Chairman, I did a comparison with Kenya. What Kenya they did, they were addressing even that. And I said it caused a very big problem because there is a very big report. They went even backward to say that for you now you don't benefit until we come at the same level. Because, Mr. Chairman, you will agree with me that if you go for the oil and gas sector, I don't know how many Japadollars have managed to take their children to London School of Economics to study that sector. But Mr. Chairman, I was a member of the oil and I represented the Red at one time, the appointments committee. And I've also taken, when I was doing this, to see how many people went into study the oil and gas. The Minister, actually, there is a list which was supplied in the Committee of Education, where they are educating people out of the country, government scholarship, oil and gas. But if you looked at the list, it was deplorable. But we didn't want to go there even, despite the fact, Mr. Chairman, I have. Mr. Chairman, too, I happen to have been a petition in the East African Court of Justice. Those who are saying the law exists and the promotions within the army. Myself and Honorable Samuji, we contended that the UPDF Act provides for Army Promotions Board. But before the president would promote people without passing through the Army Promotions Board. And we went to East African Court of Justice and say, look, it must go through, the people should be taken through the process. So they appraise people. And then he promotes them according to what the Army Promotion Board has done. But of course, I hadn't gone there. But also, Mr. Chairman, but the law was there. Maybe what was lacking was the will. Even when the law was clear, we had to go to the East African Court of Justice for orders. So now it acts that way. Someone would say, why don't you write to him? Why do you go to court? But by the time it was addressed, I think the imbalance had already been occasioned. But we are not even addressing that. Mr. Chairman, I was vice chair of Public Accounts Committee. Let me just use one example. The law provides that for you to be the Auditor General, the Administrator General, you must have served, I think, 10 years. When they left, Mr. Toke left, then the other people who are at that level, they were all deployed in justice. And someone was acting when he was 7 years. Auditor General picked it. Brought to our attention, we wrote back. It was not addressed until the time when someone who was acting became now was confirmed. And there are very many issues raised by Auditor General's reports, if you read them. So, Mr. Chairman, I had the benefit of looking at, doing a review of the existing law. Even we looked at Article 32, I wanted even to go by a bill. But when I was trying to move under the bill, we had a discussion with our legal department. They said, no, Because you want to, now, maybe this will be followed, you need an amendment, so it is followed by the subsidiary legislation arising out of. That is how, Mr. Chairman. So it's also not true that there exists a law which addresses what I'm saying. Many people even fear talk about it. That's why I was telling people that everybody knows that I mean well, I act in good faith. So when I speak, nobody will think that maybe I'm after someone. Mr. Chairman, we were in Parliament, when we asked the 9th Parliament, what is the criteria? Honorable Jova was there, of granting these roads in the country. What's going to be under by then? Then he told us that criteria is that there must be economic activity coming from there. So that when we are getting a loan, we shall service the loan. This applies to electricity. Now the roads and the electricity became political. They do not just give you or not following the criteria. That one, if you go to the economy, which says we must revamp, you can't. You took electricity poles politically where you not get the money to pay back even those loans. You took roads where there was no economic activity, where people put a cassava, roasting cassava, just as the purpose. We left the procedure, but at least it's on record. But the power that be as of then acted that way. Then on the question of who qualifies, Mr. Chairman, you see, we need to do a study on the labor supply versus the labor market. Mr. Chairman, I've had the benefit when I was dealing with this bill, even to look at figures, how many people come from the university. It is amazing. They are very young, intelligent boys in Nagongera, who nobody in a Kampala, and after studying, they go back to Nagongera. You find them selling sekoko on the road. These guys are graduate. They are graduate.
That's our brand.
Yes. I met.
Just for your information, this morning, two of my constituents met me at game, and they asked me, "What are you doing?" They were cleaning, like employed by a cleaning company. And I asked them, "How much are they paying you?" 150,000, and they are graduates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I thought I was making a submission, so that my colleagues appreciate where I'm coming from.
For the record, property has pushed the Pandora into selling. Turkey. When you see anybody with the Turkey, send people in Kampala, just say, "Oh, they will." We've accepted that. We are working hard.
Mr. Chairman, you see, the examples I'm giving, actually, what I'm saying is that a graduate of statistics.
No, that's very true.
Statistics. Mr. Chairman, I went. Mr. Chairman, maybe to appeal to my good friend Honorable Jova, I went to prison. I was going to say civil data. Then I found a young man, he's a graduate of statistics. I asked him, "What are you doing here?" I knew him. He told me, "No, you know, when I finished, I went to Chikoni. I first got I used to do some work, you boss. This is a course of 2 to 3 months. Then after, he feared to go back now to Jinja. He joined these rackets of here. They're hitting people, grabbing phones. I say, "You man, you have a degree in statistics. How do you engage into that?" So that you see, you reach that level. But the point I'm making, that if they were addressing on merit, maybe someone would have come from somewhere. And instead of taking 4, maybe you take 1. And they both take 1. So at the end of the day, we'll be reducing that type of situation. That's what I'm raising. And I'm making a very passionate appeal to colleagues that I know it is very tricky to talk about. And I'm not even saying, by Mr. Chairman, that those who should be employed should not be on merit. No. I am not saying that. I'm only saying that I know there are graduates in Chisoro, as they are in Kabaramaido, as they are everywhere, who went to school together. And if you ask one those who are in office, yes, they will tell you. Yes, that's what they will tell you. So anyway, Mr. Chairman, as I move to, Mr. Chairman, I move to.
There are only 400,000 government jobs.
Mr. Chairman, my submission is simple. I'm saying that through the quota system, we have graduates who come from the university, who are statisticians, who are lawyers, who are doctors. They are all over. Mr. Chairman, this is done in the police, in the army. The rationale is simple, that you don't have an army from Chisolo. Otherwise, if we say that you don't have quota system in the army, you do have an army from Chisolo and you don't pay allegiance to one person. The rationale of distributing the recruitment, or of distribution.
UPDF.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. The rationale of doing that.
There are some
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Water system
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in where they are not, we can create exceptions to such situations. But for us to say that we don't even now legislate because there are some handful of people, then there will be a problem. Mr. Chairman, one of us
Just a small clarification. How shall we ensure that once we put this in the Constitution, we will ensure that it is implemented better than what we are doing now to implement the laws that are in place?
Mr. Chairman, I answered that. I said there are no laws in place. That's why you have mentioned none. Mr. Chairman, that's why I said that when you read the bill, it creates an obligation on the Equal Opportunities Commission to provide the report so that you know what actually is taking place. Mr. Chairman, Obasarirwa raised an issue of Article 32.
Why not a report
32.
Rather than get involved in the giving of the jobs initially?
Mr. Chairman, the Equal Opportunities Commission does not give jobs. I'm saying Public Service Commission continue doing the jobs. You understand? But the Equal Opportunities Commission will only ensure that actually they are the gatekeepers. That the law is being taken. Mr. Chairman,
the Opportunities Commission ensures that, as I said earlier, that the money, maybe not everywhere, but that the money is equitably distributed.
But
Why
now
can they
we are
not
talking about the
ensure
human resource.
that the jobs?
The human resource.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I seek your protection now that I make a submission.
I think you
So
better finish.
But you see, with this interruption, we are talking of that she finishes and then I respond.
No, Chair, to allow you
To finish, okay. Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I've addressed the question of Honorable Basari. There's already Article 32. I'm doing an insertion of 32A, which is a reinforcing 32, from which we shall get a subsidiary law to operationalize 32 and 32A. Mr. Chair, you have got me on that?
Yes.
Then, too, on the question of election petition, Honorable Basari raised the issue, appeal. Mr. Chairman, now, people have confined in me. Mr. Chairman, what is taking place in this, of course, apparently, the one person determines an election petition. Then you go to 3. Those would be 4 in number. We are talking about 7 people determining an election petition. And Mr. Chairman, the rationale is also simple. You see, I've interfaced with people who are litigants in the court. And they have had their friends saying, like, on appeal, there are 3, you provide for 2. So you will have hit this person. The reason I was telling Mr. Chairman why, I'm talking of reality, Mr. Chairman, because I've been there, from what the people have been confining me. Mr. Chairman, you provide for, and then the issue will collapse. Why, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about 7, is to make even the process of bribing expensive. Because if you're going to talk about 7 people, and you're looking at
Then have an appellate tribunal 9.
No, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm addressing on the issue. Then I was also looking from that point. Then the other issue, it is the expediency to expedite dispose of the matter. Some people go back to their gardens because if 7 people have taken a decision, and these are senior citizens, most of them, and in their view, they don't mind about governance of the country, mind about other things. Then we shall also. Then also the question of certainty, Mr. Chairman. Once you have a petition, you not settle in this parliament. You'll be thinking about the petition. You're going to spend 1 or 2 years. You're not in the constituency. You're not in the parliament. You are on the petition. You are looking for logistics to handle your petition. You understand. So at the end of the day, there will be no representation in parliament for that period. You have taken into account all those, though they cannot be reflected in the petition. Mr. Chairman, the appeal process, the argument for an appeal is just an argument on form, not substance, in my view. Mr. Chairman, yes. The Honorable Bitangalo, I think, had answered his issue about the law. I'm very glad he will thank me after he had started on the bad note of bad. Though I want to specifically respond to the question of building capacity within the judiciary so that they can expeditiously. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I was in this committee, me and yourself. We defended the Judicial Administration Bill. Our assumption was that the judicial officer understood what we went through on the floor to defend that bill. But the situation has not changed in terms of conduct. And
But it's too soon for you. It's too soon, really.
Mr. Chairman, when we were defending this bill, some of us said, look, judicial officers are poorly paid. And at the end of the day, they have to run. Some are in business. Some even engage in unethical behavior, not by choice, because they must actually survive. But Mr. Chairman, you see, we all live in these societies. Just like the way it was for the Electoral Commission to declare candidates, that you knew where to go for them to declare. The same, Mr. Chairman, these people ask for money from us in society to do some of these things. That's why, Mr. Chairman, when we talk about...
And we also increase their pay, this same committee.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. You understand? That's why, Mr. Chairman, I think we want them to go and build the capacity in this post to go for other matters. Election petitions, especially specialized type of litigation, for which we can build the capacity over a period of time. But the expeditious disposal should be key. Mr. Chairman, I had a petition. I told you, the petition judgment was delivered in 2 months at High Court. The appeal was disposed of in 18 months. And there was one issue, who won? But I don't want to go there. Then the question was, Honorable Bakamba asked, he didn't understand why am I bringing in the question of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Mr. Chairman, when you are amending or substituting Article 86, other than the parliamentary election petitions, it has a provision of the question of the Speaker. That is the, so you must also talk about it. So you can't deal with parliamentary, then you leave the Speaker hang, then you will have repealed the provision of the Speaker if you don't provide for it in the election tribunal. So it is like a transplant from Article 86, the amendment the way it is, because the provision provide for dealing with the questions of whether someone is a valid Speaker or not a Speaker, and Deputy Speaker under 86, the sub-article. So that's why I'm talking about it in this matter. Then the 140, I told you it was a consequential amendment. But once you deal with the 86, then automatically you must do away with the 140, which provides for the jurisdiction. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and the colleagues for the patience, and I want to invite you that the law is blunt, that the law, not at this stage, after passing the bill, I will invite you for dinner. Mr. Chairman, when we are making the law is blunt. It is not looking for anybody. And I may not be a beneficiary even out of this same law myself, but because I have a national duty to execute. That's why I took the risk of being misunderstood to be like witch hunting some of the benefactors of the imbalance, whereas not. Mr. Chairman, this bill on the first part is only intending to start on a new page. We don't intend to witch hunt those who have taken the benefit of the imbalance. No, that's not what I intend to do. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank members for having listened to me. God bless you. After you pass the bill.
Not now.
Thank you very much.
Consider for 259.
Yeah. And we'll...
Mr. Chairman, I answered that. I said we discussed it with the department. We will go under 259 after this amendment, because we shall have, when you look at 32, the weight, because when you look at 32, the bill will not be operationalized in 32 as is. That's why we are creating 32, so it's 259.
So you will take your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, and Madam Red.
The lady in red.
Yeah, we are giving you